Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Lord Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 So today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, Chapter 17, text number 4. The title of this chapter is The Punishment and Reward of Kali. So, before I read this, I want to tell you a quick story. That devotees were serving Srila Prabhupada very early on in the movement in 1968. And there was a husband and wife team who were acting as his servant and secretary. The names were Gaur Sundar Das and Govinda Dasi. And they were both very enthusiastic, very intelligent man and woman. And they did all the service that Prabhupada needed. And they did it very nicely. So one time Srila Prabhupada was doing his translating, and he asked Gaur Sundar to please do the transcriptions, write it all down. And from the tapes. And Gaur Sundar, a very intelligent young man, said, yes, no problem, Prabhupada, I will do this. Then he said to Gaur Sundar's wife, Govinda, he says, now I want you to type it out. And Govinda Dasi had a very special relationship with Srila Prabhupada. She would actually talk to Prabhupada sometimes like it was her son, and sometimes like a father, it depending on the mood. This particular instance, she was talking to him like it was a son. And when asked to do this typing, Govinda said, I don't think it's a good idea, Swamiji. I'm not a very good typist. Get somebody else. Now, that's a pretty bold thing to say to your spiritual master. To say, no, I don't think it's a good idea. Get somebody else. But that was their relationship. So Prabhupada says, no, Govinda, I want you to type. And Govinda again said, but Swamiji, I'm not good at typing. Get somebody else. Get somebody who's a good typist, not me. And Prabhupada looked at her and said, all right. When you are faced with a task that you don't feel that you are qualified to do, you want to pray to Krishna. And the prayers that you will pray are these. And these are prayers that you generally hear before Bhagavatam class every day. It's Om Jnana Tiradam Jasya Gyanam Janam Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Maha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Svapatantikam. Okay, that's the two prayers that Srila Prabhupada told Govinda. Whenever you feel you're about to take on a task or a service that you don't feel qualified to do, you chant these prayers and Krishna will help you. So that's why usually Bhagavatam speakers sit and they say that first. It's like, I shouldn't be doing this, I shouldn't be here, but, I've been asked to do it, so here I am. So we always say, oh my God, please, Krishna. And I'm an idiot, but please help me out here. So that's where that prayer actually was originated back in 1968. To Govinda Dasi and her little way of dealing with Prabhupada. Very special. So here we go. Alright, so you guys don't have it on a board or anything, so I'm just doing this myself. Oh, you're on. Oh, you can do it like that. Okay. Okay, so text 4. Prapacharatam aruda. Oh. Okay. Prapacharatam aruda. Kartasvara parichadam. Kartasvara parichadam. Mega gambira Mega Gambiraya Vacha
Mega Gambiraya Vacha Samaropita Karmuka Samaropita Karmuka Rapacharatsamaruda Kartasvara Parichadam Mega Gambiraya Vacha Samaropita Karmuka Papacharatam Aruda Kartasvara Parichadam Mega Gambiraya Vacha Samaropita Karmuka. Somebody? Mega Gambiraya Vacha Samaropita Karmuka. Anybody else? Abhaya Katasavarichadam Mega Gambiraya Vacha Samaropita Karmuka. Now it's a shame that none of the Matajis have books, because I could tell you a really nice story if you could chant the sloka. Can you just let one Mataji chant? And I'll tell you a story. Okay, now I'll tell you the story. In 1968, in Los Angeles, the devotees were still getting the hang of Sanskrit. And, basically speaking, when Prabhupada introduced repeating the shloka after it was heard, they were making so many mistakes. And because they were making so many mistakes, they were very tentative in their chanting. They'd be like almost doing it under their breath, like so just in case I make a mistake, nobody can really hear me. So all the men did this, and even the sannyasis and the GBCs and all, they were still kind of not belting it out. They were not really enthusiastically chanting. So when Prabhupada said Matajis, the Matajis were belting it out. They were like, because this is their chance to, impress Srila Prabhupada. So the women were chanting so nicely. And when the chanting finished, Prabhupada said, and he looked at the men, he says, the women are better. Ooh. So male egos. All the men are like, whoa, oh. So immediately after class, they got the next verse for the next day. They went to the Sanskrit editor, Prajuma, and they said, tell us how to pronounce this. They all sat around and practiced. They practiced. Prapucha Ratam Haruta. Prapucha Ratam Prapucha Ratam. They got it down. They were just like so fired up. So the next morning when it came time to chant the sloka, Prabhupada says, men? And the men were like, every man was just like giving it all they got. Just, wow, this is so ecstatic, Prabhupada's just going to be in ecstasy. And then he went to the women, where the women were ready for the challenge. And they were even louder. They were like, they were so loud. And when they finished, Prabhupada looked at the men and he goes, they are still better. So that's sloka chanting. And one time in Tokyo, Prabhupada actually spent the entire class just simply chanting the sloka, just so that everybody would get the hang of it and understand just how important chanting of the Sanskrit sloka is. So when we read, we're not supposed to just read the translation. We're supposed to read the whole verse, right? The text, the translation, the purport. Don't skip through it. It's important. It actually purifies you and you don't even know it. So very important. Okay. The word for word. Prapacha, inquired. Ratam, chariot. Arudaha, seated on. Kartasvara, gold. Parichadam, embossed with. Mega, cloud. Ambiraya, exonerating. Vacha, sound. Samaropita, well equipped. Karmuka, arrows and bow. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj Parikshit, well equipped with arrows and bow and seated on a gold embossed chariot, spoke to him, the Sudra, with a deep voice sounding like thunder. Purport. An administrative head or king like Maharaj Parikshit, with full majestic authority, well equipped with weapons to chastise miscreants, can challenge the agents of the age of Kali. Then only will it be possible to counteract the degraded age. And in the absence of such strong executive heads, there is always disruption of tranquility. The elected show bottle executive head, as representative of a degraded public, cannot be equal with a strong king like Maharaj Parikshit. The dress or style of royal order does not count. It is one's actions which are counted. So we already said Om Jnana. Did you hear the story? Have you heard that? Okay. I kind of jumped the gun on that. I was excited. So, sometimes Prabhupada, he doesn't mince his words. Sometimes he is just like, bang, take that. And this is one sentence here where Prabhupada really kind of lays it to the heads of state, the heads of government. The elected show bottle executive head, as representative of a degraded public. I mean, he's just really like putting it to it. Like, I'm not pulling any punches. This guy's a clown. The people who voted him in are clowns. Like one time, they were complaining in America about Richard Nixon, the President Richard Nixon. And Prabhupada says, you have no right to complain. You voted for him. So you are stuck with him, don't complain. So if we elect somebody because we don't look into it deep enough and we elect some guy who's just a show bottle, he's just, looks like he should be a good president or a good prime minister, that's our fault. And Prabhupada is saying like that. But the way Kali Yuga is gone, our choices usually are not very good. We don't have people representing Vedic culture. We don't have anybody who's even a good moral person. After, in America, presidents, when they leave, you usually hear stories that they did all kinds of abominable acts while acting as president. And in the last 50, 60 years, we've had quite a few presidents leaving in a shameful way. It comes out that they did all kinds of misdeeds, and you go, geez, this is the guy we elected to represent us? So it's pretty scary. Now, our movement is like a government. It's like a big government. And we actually were so lucky to have as our leader a pure devotee of God. Somebody who was able to show by his own example how to be, how to live, how to act. So we were so lucky to have Srila Prabhupada. And when you really think about a 70-year-old man leaving Vrindavan, India, a wonderful, wonderful place that people aspire their whole lives to go be there. Prabhupada is there and he chooses to leave. And where does he go? He goes to one of the most degraded places in all of the world, in all of America, the Bowery in New York City. I can't even describe it. Has anybody been there? You've been. You know what that place is like. Even now, well, now it's kind of nicer. But 1965 and 1966, the streets were littered with bums, drunken people lying in the street, people totally out of their minds walking around. And Prabhupada chose to go there. So his choice of people to bring to Krishna consciousness, we weren't the highest grade of personalities. Let's be honest. Most of Prabhupada's early disciples had problems with a lot of different things. Drugs, sex, all the things that we're supposed to be against was pretty much what everybody's life was based on. Everyone's life. So people were becoming attracted to the movement. How are they attracted to the movement? Simply through Srila Prabhupada. That was what hooked everybody in, was Srila Prabhupada. Vyasaki Das wrote a book, Radha Damodar, what's it called? Vilas. Radha Damodar Vilas. And in his investigation for this book, he interviewed so many devotees who had left the movement, disciples of Srila Prabhupada who had left the movement. And everybody had some sort of, this, I did because that. But the bottom line for every single one of them was their love for Srila Prabhupada. No matter how far away from Krishna consciousness they got, they never lost the love for Srila Prabhupada. They may go, ISKCON or this temple prayer or this GB, blah, 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 blah. But Prabhupada, hold on. Prabhupada we love. Prabhupada we would do anything for. There's one story in New York, Prabhupada was arriving for the Rath Yatra. And there was this one devotee who had left. And he grew his hair out and he was eating meat even. And he was doing intoxications. But he used to love to come to the New York temple to go to the restaurant. Because he still liked prasadam, but he was really out there. Let's face it, he was out there. None of the devotees would talk to him because he was so negative and he was such like a venomous that nobody would talk to him. One Mataji befriended him, and that was it. Now, Prabhupada was arriving for Rath Yatra in New York City, the first Rath Yatra, and when he pulled up, it just so happened this devotee who had done so much service for Srila Prabhupada, he was actually a cook for Srila Prabhupada. And when Prabhupada came, it just so happened that when Prabhupada got out of the car, this devotee was on his way into the temple to go to the restaurant. And all the devotees were kind of like standing in front of him, trying to guard, sort of like shield Srila Prabhupada from this devotee. But of course, Prabhupada, somehow or other, he gets out and he makes a beeline right to this guy. Right to him. And everyone's like, oh no, what's he going to say? What's going to happen here? And Prabhupada walks up to him and says, oh, so-and-so, so nice to see you. And he had a beard and long hair. He looked out of it. He says, so nice to see you. Can you cook for me while I am here in New York? And all the devotees like, he's eating meat, Prabhupada. They didn't say this. They were thinking this. He's eating meat, Prabhupada. He's like so out of it. And the devotee goes, the ex-devotee goes, and Prabhupada says, please, I would really appreciate if you would cook for me. And so the devotee, this ex-devotee, cooked for Srila Prabhupada. Now all the devotees in good standing were like going, come on, he's really out of it. But this Prabhupada has such compassion for all his disciples, he wanted to engage him one more time. So this devotee got to cook for Srila Prabhupada. And of course he cleaned up his act for those few days that Prabhupada was there. But that was Prabhupada's compassion. He walked the walk and talked the talk. And that's why you could fall in love with somebody like that. You felt very comfortable. Very comfortable. There's one devotee who was a GBC, a sannyasi, did so much service for Srila Prabhupada. Very personal. Every time Prabhupada wanted something special done, he would get this devotee to do it. Well, this devotee ended up leaving the movement while Prabhupada was still on the planet. He was living in the hills of California. He grew his hair long again, the whole thing, He had a wife. And this is 1977. The devotees got in touch with him because they knew Prabhupada was leaving his body. So they said to him, Prabhu, Prabhupada's about to leave his body. Do you think you might want to go see him? And of course the devotee said yes, because he loves Srila Prabhupada. And he decided to go to Vrindavan when Prabhupada was preparing to leave. So he buys himself a ticket, gets on a plane, arrives in Delhi. He's got really long hair. He purchases a kurta inside of the airport, shaves his head, and now this is the hard part, because back in the 70s, if you were either a devotee or you were not. There was no congregation thing. There was no, I just go to the Sunday feast thing, or I just like devotees, I chant once in a while. You're either in or you're out. And there was a famous word that I don't know if everybody knows. It was called blooped. Has everybody heard? You've heard this word, bloop. Like, what does that mean, bloop? Oh, Prabhupada, he blooped. Prabhupada says, what is this word, bloop? And they explained to him, like when you leave the movement, you're like going back into the material well, the material ocean. And it's like throwing a rock into the ocean, and the water, when it hits, it goes bloop. So they use that as when somebody left the movement, he blooped back into the material ocean. Bloop. So this devotee had well and truly blooped. And when you well and truly bloop, to come back amongst devotees is very, very difficult. Everyone kind of looks at you like, we remember you. You look at you now. So it's very, very difficult for this devotee to go. But because he loves Srila Prabhupada so much, he was willing to, whatever you said, whatever anybody did, I don't care. I want to see Srila Prabhupada. So he walks in the room, and some of the devotees in the room, although the emotion and the feeling for Prabhupada was so strong, they kind of gave a little side glance, like, oh, here's, we recognize you. And he comes in, and Prabhupada, I guess I can say his name, he's left his body. His name was Madhudvisa. He was a sannyasi. He was a GBC.
Oh, he left his body?
Oh, yeah.
Eh?
Oh, about 10 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Maybe not 10 years ago. Maybe 6 years ago. 6 or 7 years. Yeah.
Yeah, he came to Juhu Temple in 1999 or 2000.
Yeah. He came back. Yeah. But at this part of the story, he's not back yet.
Yeah.
He's not back yet. This is 77. So he walks into the room. Some of the devotees are kind of, not really warmly embracing his presence. But when he came in, Prabhupada said, oh, is that Madhudvisa? And Madhudvisa says, yes, Srila Prabhupada, I've come to see you. And he walks up very close, and Prabhupada says, oh, Madhudvisa, what a nice seeker you have. That was his comment. Because he had really long hair, and he left this really long sika. Rather than saying, where have you been? What have you been doing? He just said, oh, what a nice sika you have. And immediately Madhudvisa's heart melted. If it's possible to melt more, it did. Because all he could feel was how Prabhupada loved him. He didn't mention about anything he's been up to, or, what have you been doing? How could you possibly leave me? What's wrong with you? Blah, 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 blah. He didn't do any of that. He just said, oh, what a nice Sikha you have. And Mataji says, well, now I'm living in California, and I almost couldn't make it here because I'm married now. And Prabhupada says, oh, you did not bring your wife? This was a sannyasi who had left, a GBC, a confidant of Prabhupada, and he's inquiring about his wife. That's Prabhupada's compassion. And Mataji says, no, she's pregnant, and she's just about to have a baby, so she couldn't come. And Prabhupada says, oh, that is too bad. So that was Prabhupada's compassion. And when devotees used to feel that and see that, like what a leader Prabhupada was. And he wasn't just a show bottle leader. He wasn't just this guy that, demanded respect. Prabhupada commanded it. By his actions, everybody just loved him. And because Prabhupada was so personal with every single person, you felt that. You felt that love. One time Srila Prabhupada was in New Vrindavan. Now New Vrindavan is in West Virginia in the United States. And when they started this farm community, it was beyond austere. It was, I went there in 1975. I stayed there one night traveling Sankirtan, and I couldn't wait to get out of there. It was just too austere. For breakfast, they had oat water. Do you know what oat water is? You soak the oats and you drink the water, and that's your breakfast. I was like, come on, really? You want me to go out and distribute books in the cold weather and just drink oat water? But that's what they were serving, because they didn't really have a whole lot. They had the oats for the Sunday feast, but they soaked them during the week, and then you get the water, and that was it. You got a little cup of water. Oat water. There's supposed to be some kind of nutrients in oat water, but it was so austere. I couldn't wait to get out of there. So anyway, Srila Prabhupada was having this talk. He was sitting outside in the grass, and it was kind of cold. And all the devotees were there, all the men, the sannyasis, and there were some women with children. And Prabhupada noticed this one Mataji was sitting, and it was cold, and she didn't have a chadar on. She's simply wearing a sari. And Prabhupada stopped his talk. He says, are you okay? And she's like, he's talking to me? He's talking to me? And Prabhupada says, yes, are you okay? Are you warm enough? And Mataji says, well, and Prabhupada says, before she could answer, because she didn't want to say, no, I'm freezing, So before she could even really get an answer out, Prabhupada turned to the temple president and says, you should make sure that all these women are taken care of. Someone get her a chadar. So Prabhupada's giving this really amazing lecture, sitting there, and he notices a Mataji that looked cold. That's how much he cared about everybody. And it's not like she was a GBC or a sannyasi, or she's just a mother of a child in New Vrindavan, but Prabhupada cared so much. His main concern while giving this talk is not that, am I saying something great for all these sannyasis? No, the Mataji looks cold. Someone please get her a chadar. So that was Srila Prabhupada. Now, he totally led from the front. And because Prabhupada was so empowered, everyone bought into it. Everyone bought into it. Like in 1966, Srila Prabhupada started the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Now, at 1966, when he started that, there weren't even this many people interested in Krishna Consciousness in New York City, let alone America or the world. But yet Prabhupada calls the movement the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And the devotees, there's like a half a dozen to a dozen of them, are thinking, why are we calling it international? We're here in New York. It's just a bunch of us New Yorkers, Why is it international? And Krishna, if we call it Krishna, nobody will come. Nobody even knows who Krishna is. But Prabhupada stuck to it. He says, no, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And they just couldn't, what do you mean? Come on. Maybe there'll be 20 of us in 5 years from now, maybe. But, they're international. But Prabhupada knew. Prabhupada knew that this movement would spread like crazy. And Prabhupada empowered all his disciples to spread the movement. These people that he empowered, materially speaking, they would not be what you would say are very qualified. They were not qualified at all. I mean, I really hate to say this, but it's true. Most of them were doing drugs. They were doing drugs when they met Prabhupada. They were doing drugs after they met Prabhupada. They were doing all kinds of nonsense. Shyam Sundar. Has everyone heard of Shyam Sundar, right? He was available to go to London to start a temple. I mean, this guy, he was in San Francisco, and Prabhupada had come across some dolls. Does everybody know that story? You probably heard this story, right? That Shyam Sundar's wife, whose name was Malati, she went to a emporium. A emporium is a place where artifacts and objects from around the world are sold. And in a bin, like the discount bin, she found this little doll, just a tiny little doll. And it looked Indian, so she just took one. Didn't pay for it, she just took it. She did things like that, she took one. And she thought, I'm going to ask Swamiji what this doll is. So she goes and she shows Swamiji. He says, well, he wasn't Prabhupada yet. So Swamiji, do you know what this is? And Prabhupada went down and paid dandavats on the ground. Prabhupada says, oh, you have found Jagannath. And she's like, Jagannath? What's Jagannath? You know? And he says, are there any more like that? She says, yes, there's a white one and a yellow one that kind of look the same. He says, go back and buy the other two. And now we have Jagannath. Jagannath has come to San Francisco. So they had these tiny little dolls. And Prabhupada said to his disciples there, is anybody able to carve bigger like this? And Shyam Sundar says, yes, Prabhupada, I'm a carpenter. I can do this. So he was given the task of creating the first deities in ISKCON. Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra. The first deities in ISKCON in San Francisco. When that comes up in a trivia question, now you know the answer. The first deities, ISKCON, Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra, San Francisco. So he's carving the deities in his apartment. And Prabhupada's waiting for the deities. He wants to install them before he leaves San Francisco. So Shyam Sundar is taking his time. Because as long as he's finishing slowly, Prabhupada's staying in San Francisco. So he's like carving slow. And Prabhupada would say, how are the deities coming, Shyam Sundar? Oh, good, Srila Prabhupada, coming right along. And then he'd go back and he'd take his time carving. No rush. Prabhupada's going to stay till they're ready. So he's keeping Prabhupada in San Francisco. And Prabhupada finally sort of said, okay, this seems to be taking a long time. So he goes to Shyam Sundar's apartment, knocks on the door. Prabhupada, you've come. He says, yes, I just thought I would come see deities. So he comes in, he says, oh, well, here's Jagannath, I finished him. Here's Baladev, I'm working on him, and Subhadra's over here. And Prabhupada looks, and on top of Balaram's head is a pack of cigarettes. Prabhupada just looks, sees the cigarettes, he takes his cane, he goes, what? Knocks the cigarettes off on the ground. So here is Shyam Sundar, not initiated yet. We won't give him too much grief for it. Not initiated yet. Carving the first deities in ISKCON and smoking cigarettes. Okay? This is one of Prabhupada's most cherished disciples. Having a smoke while carving the deities. Okay. So, another story with Shyam Sundar, just because I actually like Shyam Sundar, so I'll tell you a story. When he got initiated, it was actually the third initiation, the third fire sacrifice performed within ISKCON was his initiation in San Francisco. Now, Prabhupada had said to get certain ingredients for this fire sacrifice. Now, when fire sacrifice was first said, everyone is like, fire sacrifice? Like, what's a fire? I mean, the only thing you can think of is things you've seen in the movies where they have a fire sacrifice in Africa and they burn somebody or cook somebody. And that's what everyone's thinking, a fire sacrifice. Oh my God, what are we going to do? A fire sacrifice? They don't know what's going on here with a fire sacrifice. And Prabhupada says, and these are the ingredients we need for this fire sacrifice. Okay, the fire sacrifice. He says, get some crates, break up wood. We need piles of wood. Well, that makes sense, right? You're going to have a fire, you need wood. Then Prabhupada says, we need lots and lots of butter. It's like, butter? We really are going to cook somebody, aren't we? Butter. What's the butter for? Prabhupada says, I will show you. We will make it into ghee. Ghee? What's ghee? Nobody knows what ghee is. So Prabhupada explains, and they get this butter. Then he says, I will need fruits. Fruits. We are going to cook, but it's going to be like a vegetarian feast, right? We have fruits. Bananas. And other fruits. And Prabhupada says, rice. Oh, okay, so it's kind of like a feast then. Fire sacrifice is like a giant feast. We're just going to be cooking, and then we'll eat something. That sounds like fun. So there's about to be an initiation. They assemble all the different components for this fire sacrifice. Prabhupada has the 4 people about to be initiated sitting around the fire with Srila Prabhupada. And he starts ladling the ghee onto this fire that he's building. Now all the devotees, the 4 about to be initiated devotees, they are wearing their finest clothes. They dressed up for the occasion. Shyam Sundar, who is Sam, he had on this, I know the word doesn't probably work here, but madras. It's a very, very colorful jacket. Like every color you can possibly think of under the sun. In the 60s in America, this was the thing. A madras jacket, it was called. And he had a shirt that had nothing to do with the jacket. And then he wore a tie. Which had nothing to do with the shirt, which had nothing to do with the jacket. And then he had a pair of pants that had nothing to do with the shirt, which had nothing to do with the tie, which had nothing to do with the jacket. He was a spectacle. Let's put it nicely. He was a spectacle. Now, his wife, Melanie, she couldn't find anything to wear that even resembled anything dressy. So she wore one of his dress shirts and a pair of jeans underneath. But a big he's a big guy. Big shirt that came down to like here. And that's what she was wearing. Oh, she thought she looked fantastic. She was dressed so nicely. And the other 2, well, they were kind of business people. So they did play the part. They looked okay. So now Prabhupada's ladling the ghee into this fire. So there's inside a room, it's about the size of this, filled with people. And inside, right in the middle, there is a fire going on. Big fire pit, fire going on, fire sacrifice. Now it's starting to get really, really hot, because this is a tight little room. So Shyamsundar, he loosens his tie. He says, it's getting kind of hot in here. He's sweating a bit. And Prabhupada's ladling the ghee. The fire is blazing higher and higher. And then Prabhupada says, now, when I say svaha, let's try it. Svaha. When I say svaha, I want you to throw the rice. Okay, so they all grab a handful of rice. Prabhupada's ladling the ghee. He's chanting all these wonderful mantras. And then he goes, svaha. And they all throw the rice. Right at Srila Prabhupada. Now Prabhupada, he's a little sweaty too, because it's really hot. So he has a bit of sweat. And the rice is sticky. All over his neck and his face, the top of his head. He wipes it off, and he says, no. Into the fire. So they all throw another handful into the fire. Okay, we're getting the hang of this now. Prabhupada keeps ladling, fire's going, chanting mantras. This is so ecstatic. Nobody knows what's going to happen, but they're just having so much fun. This is really amazing. Prabhupada chanting shlokas is just worth it just for that. Just to hear Prabhupada chanting is like, wow, this is so amazing. Oh, the Sanskrit that he knows, it's, oh gosh, it's so spiritual. Then Prabhupada says, take your banana. So they all pick up their banana. And they're like, oh great, I am really hungry. So they start peeling the banana. And right before Swamisundar puts the banana in his mouth, Prabhupada says, no. Into the fire. Now they're all thinking, what a waste of a good banana. So they throw the bananas in the fire. Now the fire is blazing, the smoke's going everywhere. It's just like an amazing, amazing moment for all of their lives. They're about to take initiation. Fire sacrifice is coming to a conclusion. Prabhupada now says, now remember, Prabhupada's from Bengal. They're from San Francisco. And they didn't have that much association with Prabhupada as of this moment. They'd heard him speak, but they're still trying to figure out what he's saying because the Bengal accent that Prabhupada had was very strong back in 1967. Very strong. So Prabhupada said to them, now bow down. And they're like, bow down. Bow down. They're looking at each other. Bow down, bow down. Now the one guy who's getting initiated, he was with Prabhupada in New York. So he said, I think I got it. I think I know what he's trying to say. He's trying to say, blow down. So they all get on their hands and knees and start blowing in the fire. So they're blowing the fire and all the smoke right into Prabhupada. And Prabhupada goes, no. Bow down. Obeisances. Obeisances. So they all pay their obeisances. And that was the third initiation when Swamisundar got his name. Very nice. Now, let's go back to New York City. Now, the first time Janmashtami was celebrated, now this is another one, make note of this. The first Janmashtami outside of India was celebrated in New York City in 1966. Now, Prabhupada used to have a program in the morning, and he'd do the same thing. They'd have a little kirtan, he'd give a little class, and they'd have some prasadam. So this morning, right before we start with the class, Prabhupada says, today is Janmashtami. And everybody went, okay. What's Janmashtami? So Prabhupada goes, today is Janmashtami. Janmashtami is like your Christmas. Okay. It is actually the appearance day of Lord Shri Krishna. Oh, okay. So it's like a special day. Yeah, Prabhupada says, yes, very special day. So because today is special day, we will have special program. Now after prasadam, everyone used to leave every single day. And they would leave the dishes and the pots for Prabhupada to clean every day. Prabhupada never said anything. So finally somebody said, do you want some help cleaning the dishes? And Prabhupada says, yes, that would be very nice. And then they took over that responsibility. But Prabhupada used to do everything himself. So this particular day, Prabhupada says, we will have a special program today. He says, today we will have half-hour kirtan, half-hour class, and half-hour japa, chanting on our beads together. And they're all thinking, okay, well that's basically what we usually do, but another half hour for chanting on the beads. Okay, we can do this. And then Prabhupada says, but we will do this all day. And now everybody's like, whoa, all day? What do you mean all day? Like usually we're out of here by 9. It's like it's almost 8 o'clock now, all day. Prabhupada says, yes, we will have kirtan, class, chanting on beads. Kirtan, class, chanting on beads. All day. Now they're all thinking, oh my gosh, all day. Oh geez, that's like, what am I going to do? I got to go home and feed the cat. I was supposed to meet somebody at the coffee house. all these kind of things that they had planned. But Prabhupada says no. So they say, okay, today, special day, we'll do this. Then Prabhupada says, and we shall fast all day. Now, everyone's like, whoa! What, fast? You mean no breakfast? No lunch? No dinner? Fast? Prabhupada says, yes, all day and all night. Oh, and all night. Till midnight. Like nobody has ever done this before. Ever. Fasting all day and night. So the devotees are getting a little panic-stricken. But it's a special day. Prabhupada wants us to be special. We'll do it. For Prabhupada, we'll do it. So the morning program's going on. Prabhupada's lecturing. He's telling stories about his spiritual master, explaining Janmashtami. They have wonderful kirtan, chanting japa. Now it's about 2:30 in the afternoon. Now by 2:30 in the afternoon, they've been sitting cross-legged on the floor doing this wonderful activity with Srila Prabhupada, and now their legs are starting to hurt because, we sit in chairs, right? That's what, Americans do. We sit in chairs. We don't sit like this. So their legs are starting to hurt. So they're complaining, my legs are hurting, I don't know, people, so just stand up. What are you complaining about? Stand up. And I'm really hungry. It's like 2:30. I haven't eaten all day. I missed breakfast, lunch. I'm starving. So Prabhupada's seeing everyone's starting to fidget around. They're all moving around. They're getting a little bit restless. So Prabhupada says, okay then. We shall have something to eat. We will have rock candy. And again, rock candy? What the heck is rock candy? Nobody knows what rock candy is. Well, guess what? I just so happen to have some. I always carry a little rock candy with me. So Prabhupada explained what it was. And one of the devotees, there it is. See, little hard candies. Now, this isn't what you call a meal, but, it worked. One devotee says, I've got some energy. I'll go get some candy. Looks for rock candy. Nobody knows what it is. In all of New York City, nobody knows. But she comes back with little pieces of candy like that. Now, the hungry people, that was like, feast, it's a feast, look what we got. She comes back with a jar like that and starts handing him out. Oh, God. Oh, man, that was so good. You got another one? Oh, yeah, They have like 2 or 3 of these things, and they're satisfied. They're like, yeah, that really hit the spot. Those little orange candies. Woo, I love them. So now they're feeling pretty good. And it gets to midnight. They made it. But after that little period, it actually got to be ecstatic. Chanting, hearing, all that wonderful nectar with Srila Prabhupada. It was wonderful. But before midnight comes, about 7, 8 o'clock at night, Prabhupada stopped. And he said, I would like to hear from my disciples their feelings about Krishna consciousness. Now, nobody had ever spoken in front of Srila Prabhupada about their realizations. This was the first time, Janmashtami, Prabhupada asked somebody to speak in front of him. Now he calls on the first person. He would say like, Lila Proshant, tell me your realizations. Now you'd only been in the temple for like 2 weeks. What do you know? So they stand up and they go, I think it's really far out. I mean, when you chant, you get a funny feeling. It's not like doing drugs because, you can do it any time and it doesn't cost anything. And these were the comments that Prabhupada was hearing. And Prabhupada said, oh, very nice. Very nice. Thank you. But he was calling on people who had just come. And so there was another girl he called on, and she stood up. She was ready to talk. She was like, yeah, man, it's like so far out. I love this Hare Krishna thing, man. I mean, I can just do it all the time. Prabhupada says, thank you very much. And now he's looking around the room. And certain of his disciples-to-be, they'd been around for a bit longer. And they knew that they would get called on, but they didn't want to speak, so they were like ducking behind people. One person in particular, who's now Mukunda Maharaj, he tried to hide the best of his ability behind somebody. Oh, please don't let me, don't call on me, don't call on me. And Prabhupada didn't call on him. He was so happy. But some of the other devotees, he called on. And they got up and they were saying things right from what Prabhupada was saying. And Prabhupada actually commented. He says, this is very good. Repeating the words of the spiritual master is very good. So Prabhupada was pleased. So that was the first time a devotee was asked to speak and give a talk in front of Srila Prabhupada. Now inside the temple room, in the morning, only in the morning and in the evening, a couple days a week, they had kirtan.
That Janmashtami, they didn't have a feast, midnight feast?
Yes, they had feast. I didn't get to that part. That was a given. Everybody else. We had feast, midnight feast, of course. I'm just going to continue on with the first in New York City. Thanks for reminding me. I got another one. So they had kirtan in the temple room. And it wasn't like a major commitment of who you are or where you're going in life by going to the storefront with Swamiji and chanting. And then you'd go out and you could do whatever you wanted to do. Nobody was shaved up. Nobody's wearing dhoti and kurta. So you could do whatever you wanted to do. You could go out and you could have a cigarette. You could have a cup of coffee. You could do whatever you want. Now, one time, Srila Prabhupada says, we are going to go chant in the park. And now it's like, outside? People are going to see us. And, so they're all panicking. Like, everyone's going to know that we're kind of like different now. We're chanting these mantras and people are going to see us, so I won't be able to go into the coffee shop anymore without somebody saying, oh, you're a Hare Krishna, huh? So it was kind of freaky for them. So Prabhupada's leading the party, walking down the street. And most of them are kind of like, uh-oh, there's somebody from my building over there. Oh no. They were really freaked out. But Prabhupada's walking like he did, just gliding along, so happy, so transcendental. And they're looking at Prabhupada, he's wearing his sannyasi outfit, and they're like, well, he's doing it. Why can't we do it? So they felt a little prouder. They get to the park. Prabhupada's playing bongos. Do we know what bongos are here? You know, bongo drums, they're just, boom, 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 boom. It's like hitting a cardboard box or something. Not a great sound, but that's the only instruments they had. And people are playing all kinds of wild instruments, and everything is wild. Wild, wild, wild. It's just crazy. And the dancing in the 60s was totally bizarre. Bizarre is the best word I can think of, because it was like, you're expressing yourself. So whatever you did, it was just like, that is just so cool. You're just expressing yourself. But Prabhupada tolerated all this. He tolerated all this. Let me do another Janmashtami one. This is this stream of these stories just keeps coming. I should keep track. So Janmashtami, 1970, New Vrindavan. Now New Vrindavan, like I said, very austere place. On the best of days, it's austere. Janmashtami, super austere. Super austere. These guys didn't eat a whole lot prior to Janmashtami, so they were hungry, very, very hungry. But they worked as well in the fields, hard manual labor in the fields on Janmashtami. So midnight comes, and everyone's so excited. We're going to have a real feast with Prabhupada. What more could you ask for? And Prabhupada says, before we have feast, we will read from Krishna book. Okay, that sounds like a lot of fun, right? You're with Prabhupada, someone gets to read Krishna book. They read a chapter of Krishna book. And now we're going to have this amazing feast. It was so worth it. And Prabhupada says, read another. So now the devotees are getting really hungry, really tired. And sitting around Srila Prabhupada are about 15 sannyasis. And they're starting to fall asleep. Now, back in the day, everyone carried a danda. No sannyasi was seen without a danda. So as they're falling asleep, the dandas are going like this. Up and down. 15 at all different times. All you can see is dandas going up and down, up and down, up and down. They go down, catch themselves, back up again. Down, catch themselves, back up again. And every single one of them were falling asleep. And Prabhupada's just sitting listening to Krishna book. The dandas are going up and down. Everyone's kind of in the back going... They can see it. They're laughing. It's really funny. Comes to the end of the chapter. Everyone sits up again. Prabhupada says, read another. Now it's even worse. We're on our 3rd chapter of Krishna book, and the dandas are going, nyeh, 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 nyeh. Everybody who was laughing are falling asleep. Everyone's falling asleep. Prabhupada's just enjoying it. He's enjoying it. Comes to the end of this chapter. The devotee's like, please, please. Prabhupada says, now we may feast. Hey! Jai Prabhupada! Everyone wakes up. So, the dancing. I was mentioning the dancing. The dancing was wild. Absolutely crazy dancing. And then Prabhupada introduced the world-famous Swami step. Everyone knows the Swami step, right? We do that. We start out most kirtans with the Swami step. That was the dance. The only dance that you did early on in Krishna Consciousness. There was no anything else. It was simply the Swami step. Even if you were feeling the most ecstasy you've ever felt in your life, chanting Hare Krishna. That's all you did. The Swami step. Then, in 1969, in Los Angeles, at a Sunday feast, they were going to have a big initiation that day. So there was a lot of devotees, a lot of different devotees from other areas around Los Angeles. They all assembled for this. And there was also this Mataji, the name escapes me, who was a guru to the rich Hindus living in Los Angeles. She has a temple in Vrindavan, actually, right next to Krishna Balaram. But anyway, in 1969, she shows up with her disciples, elderly, well-dressed Hindus, and they come to the temple. So after the fire sacrifice, Prabhupada is up on a stage, and he starts leading kirtan. So all the devotees on the stage and in the audience, they're up 2 lines doing the Swami step. Now the tempo is starting to pick up in this kirtan. Prabhupada then says to a devotee, you lead. Prabhupada stands up and he starts doing the Swami step. Now the kirtan's really starting to pump. It's going. It's really getting fired up. Next thing you know, the devotees look over and Srila Prabhupada is jumping up and down. And the devotees are like, oh. Prabhupada's jumping up and down. Oh, I guess we can do it too. So they start jumping up and down. Everyone's jumping up and down. Like, this is ecstatic. We're jumping up and down. This is so cool. Then Prabhupada, he turns to this Mataji. You lead. Whoa, a woman's going to lead the kirtan? Wow. She reaches in a bag and pulls out a little mridanga. She starts playing the mridanga. All the Mataji's going, there's a woman playing the mridanga. And she's leading kirtan. It must be okay, because Prabhupada said it's okay. Women are just going... She actually leads a really nice kirtan. All the devotees are jumping and jumping and jumping and jumping. Now before the kirtan is even over, one of the devotees gets on the telephone, because there's, back in the 60s, you don't, Facebook or WhatsApp, forget it. Gets on the telephone, calls New York. Brahmananda answers the phone. He says, Prabhu, guess what? We're allowed to jump. Prabhupada is jumping up and down in kirtan. Brahmana says, jump? What do you mean jump? Jump? What do you mean jump? What do you mean by jump? I don't understand. He says, no. When the kirtan's going, you're allowed to jump up and down. He goes, how do you jump? He says, what do you mean, how do you jump? You jump! You jump up and down. Brahmana goes, really? We're allowed to jump up and down? He goes, yeah, Prabhupada's doing it right now. He goes, wow. They both hang up the phone. Brahmananda picks up, he calls Montreal. Guess what? What? We're allowed to jump up and down in kirtan. It's like, wow, this is amazing. And that's how it all started. Back in 1969 in Los Angeles. Remember that one too. Jumping up and down in kirtan. Now, if you don't jump up and down, what are you doing? You do the Swami step. People look at you like, whoa, man, what's wrong with you? You're not feeling it today? Come on, jump up and down. So that's where the nectar came back then in 1969. Jumping up and down in kirtan was very, very ecstatic. So is that good enough? 20 to 9 or something? Hour?
Yeah.
Okay. I have a lot more.
We should have more session. You want to ask any question?
Yes, we'll do that. Somebody want to ask a question?
How did you meet Prabhupada?
Okay, that'll be tonight. Can I do that tonight? Because that's a long story too. It's not like a quick thing. Yeah, I'll do the how I became a devotee story. Like that's always everybody everywhere wants to know that, right? How does a white American guy become a Hare Krishna? So I'll tell that tonight, if that's okay. Anything else? All right, a quiz for you. The first temple president in ISKCON, who was it? Not you. The first temple president in ISKCON. Anybody? Nobody? Oh. Brahmananda? Is that what you said? Yeah, he wasn't Swami yet, but yes, you're right. Brahmananda. The first temple president was Brahmananda. The first temple president. Everybody knows where the first temple was, right? New York. That's an easy one. How about the second temple?
San Francisco.
You know?
I thought San Francisco.
It was actually Montreal.
Yeah, correct.
Montreal. The reason why is Prabhupada needed to do his visa. So he went there and they started a temple.
Yeah.
The third temple was San Francisco. Yeah. What other ones do I have? The first sannyasi. The first person given sannyas in ISKCON. Kirtanananda, everybody kind of knows that one. He was the first one to shave his head too, and put on what was something looking like a dhoti and kurta. It didn't really look like a dhoti and kurta. Okay, that's all my first, I think. Anything else? That's okay?
I think probably you can do a nice quiz.
Well, okay, so we kind of did the quiz. So everybody remembers the first place Prabhupada jumped up and down was Los Angeles. That was an easy one. Okay. What was the other things I said? I can't remember.
First deity.
The first deity. That's a good one.
First time devotee was asked to speak in front of him.
Yes, Janmashtami, 1966. Okay. That's pretty much... Okay, the first female disciple of Srila Prabhupada.
I think together Malati and Janaki and...
Janaki. Malati is like way in the after that. She was in San Francisco. But Janaki was Srila Prabhupada's first female disciple. Yeah. Before
Is there any news about Janaki now?
She comes around once in a while. Once in a long while. If there's some special festival, she comes. I mean, she's still a devotee, very much a devotee. She just doesn't go to the temple or anything. Yeah. I think that's about it. That's all I got for today. Tonight I'll do how I became a devotee, and it'll be in the same vein as what I just did here. So, if you don't feel like smiling and maybe laughing, don't come. It's just okay, that's cool.
No question. See, you have 2 complete days to hear about Prabhupada. You won't get a better opportunity.
So tonight I will actually say how I became a devotee, how I had some association with Prabhupada, a couple of the instructions that Prabhupada gave me, and I'll take it from there. But so hopefully everybody comes back tonight. All right. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jai. Ki Jai.
His Grace Jivanath Prabhu ki
Jai.
So, Prasadam.
The microphone. What was that for?
That's for recording, good quality recording.
Oh, okay.